Hello, listeners. Just sending you a very brief update on Posh Outdoors. This is being done via WhatsApp, so apologies if the quality isn't amazing. We are closing our WeFunder round on April the 30th. So if you wanted to invest in what we're doing at Posh, then you have until April the 30th to do it. We've been doing this for a year now. It feels like a decade at times, but we're almost there. And we're making some real good progress over the last few months. We now have, as of today, $520,000 in the WeFunder pot. A lot of that has come from podcast listeners and the Glamping Tech community. So thank you guys for that. It's come from around 120 investors in total. So if you'd like to join them, again, you have until April 30th to do it. We have 5 beautiful mirror cabins built and ready to go, and they're being delivered on site in the next few weeks. It should be kind of towards the end of April, which we're super excited about. And we've been running a advertising campaign for the launch of that first location, Skyridge Glamping, for the last kind of 5-6 weeks. And all indications point to a launch of around, it looks like we're going to generate around 100,000 US dollars of booking receipts before we even open, which we're super excited about. If anyone has any questions about how that all works, then you can shoot me an email. And so if you want to if you are interested, then head to the description. If you want to invest straight away, you can do so using the link to our WeFunder page in the description. If you want to talk it through first, if you've got any questions, whatever it may be, then you can either schedule a call or shoot me an email. And again, the link to schedule a call or my email address will both be in the description of this episode. So there's not long now. We've worked super hard on this. Hopefully you've enjoyed kind of following along for the ride. We'll probably post 1 or 2 more updates before April the 30th, just to let you know how it's all going. But yeah, we are in the final stretch now. Time is running out if you did want to get involved in Posh. Minimum entry is $100, so it doesn't have to be a huge amount. Although if anyone has $10 million, then feel free to let me know as well. So yeah, thank you guys for all your support. Thank you for your existing investment. Thank you to anyone who is taking an interest. And again, feel free to head to the link in the description to invest, or schedule a call or shoot me an email, whatever works for you. Thank you.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Unique Hospitality Podcast. I'm your co-host, Connor Schwab, joined by Mr. Nick Verslow.
Hello.
And we're back and really excited about our episode today. We're going to be having Hal Feinberg of Clear Skies Resorts join us. They have 2 properties featuring some really cool luxury geodesic domes. They're one of the largest glamping players using only domes in the US. They have, I think, about 25 of these domes on each property, one outside the Grand Canyon, one outside of Bryce Canyon. So 2 amazing locations. They have a couple unique things that they do. Is a lot of their dome interiors are unique, and one of his properties is open year round. The other one is seasonal, and one of the properties offers a restaurant as well. And one of the properties is about 5 years old. The other one, Bryce Canyon, opened about a year ago. So we'll be able to learn a lot about his journey from his first site to lessons learned in the second site. And I think they're getting some really strong rates in occupancy. And yeah, I know, domes is one of my favorite units available in the industry. And this is someone who's really executing on using them. So I'm excited to learn more about his story. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, first of all, Connor, I do want to say I know this is probably coming out like months after the episode I'm about to mention, but I recently listened to the Wildhaven episode that you hosted solo for the first time, and I've told you in private, but I'll say it publicly. Absolutely fantastic job, better than I could do, and I actually enjoyed listening to it as a listener rather than a participant for once. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of your episodes look like. Even though the timeline of this is a bit messed up. Yeah, I'm really excited to speak to Hal today. Neither of us actually know him, so it'll be a first time meeting him, but really impressed by what he's done. This Clear Sky was actually recommended to me by Kevin O'Brien, who's one of the Posh Outdoors co-founding team, because he picked up on what they're doing and just how impressive it is. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. Also, I'm sure there'll be some comparisons with the Wildhaven episode that you did, given they're both on their second location, and I'm sure looking for a third. So that'll be pretty interesting as well. And as you say, kind of the biggest dome operator that I know of. So there'll be a lot to get into. So I think Hal is about to join us. So we will get straight into it. without further ado, here's Hal Feinberg.
Hello, friends. This episode is made possible by the support of Live Oak Bank, the industry leaders for outdoor hospitality financing and the largest SBA lender in the country. If you want to learn more about their services and if it's right for your project, you can go to their website, liveoak.bank. Thanks. Now back to the show. All right, Hal, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this is actually the first time the three of us have gotten the chance to meet, so it's exciting for all of us. I've been aware of Clear Sky for a long time, and it's always really impressed me. And what has stood out is the quality of the domes, the number of the domes, the really premium locations, beautiful properties with awesome views outside of national parks. The units themselves are really well done. And I think the rates that you seem to be getting online are very strong. And you're one of the, if not the only person in the US who has, a site that's only using domes, a high volume, 25 of them, highly amenitized. And then you just opened your second location. So now you have 2 locations under your belt. So really excited. It's one of my favorite unit types, and I think you've been executing extremely well. So excited to dive into that today.
Also, appreciate it. I'm excited to be here to talk more about it.
Yeah. And looking at you have a beautiful website, and I know you've gotten press from National Geographic, Travel and Leisure, Condé Nast Traveler. Seems like you've been getting some really good recognition and press as well.
That we have. We've been fortunate for sure.
Maybe to kick us off, you could just give us a little bit of an idea of, you tell us in your own words, where Clear Sky is at today, what type of units, what type of price point. And then we can dive into, after a little bit, your personal story and how you got into the space.
You bet. So we're really trying to be, one of the players in the outdoor luxury lodging brand industry here, and we've started in 2019. Got the land near Grand Canyon during COVID, so it was a challenge because COVID was going on. And by 2021, we opened our first location in Grand Canyon and became one of the first full-service dome hotels in the country. And then, of course, now with Bryce Canyon coming online last August, we're now the first glass dome full-service hotel in the country. And we're real excited just to share such a unique experience with people. And that's kind of where we're at right now. And we're looking to expand even more as long as we can continue to develop the brand in a way that is making people happy.
And Hal, tell us a little bit more about the specifics of each location, in terms of what the guest experience is like and kind of what they can look forward to, both in terms of the accommodation and the amenities.
Sure. So really when you walk in, you check in a lobby. Both of our lobbies we try to have a little bit of a wow factor where you walk into this dome that's hopefully unlike anything anybody's ever seen. That's one of my favorite parts, is sitting in the lobby and just watching guests walk in. Just because it's such a unique experience from the get-go. And we try to create that experience initially to where when they get to their actual guest dome they're sleeping in, we hopefully are continuing the wow factor, and they just walk in and are amazed at, again, something that's unlike anything they've seen. So both locations, that's really what we're trying to do. Grand Canyon is canvas domes, and they're super fun and unique. They range from 435 square feet to 690 square feet. They're real large ceilings, so it's a vast area when you walk in. They're up to 18-foot ceilings, which is part of what creates the wow factor. The windows are panoramic around. We have skylights, so you can lay in bed and open those up and see stars on clear nights. And of course, with Bryce Canyon being glass domes, the windows about twice as big because it allows you to go floor to ceiling and be panoramic all the way around. So you really can lay in bed and see a shooting star on some clear nights if you look up long enough, many nights. And the sunrise at both locations, when you're laying in bed looking out the window, if you choose to leave your blinds open, which I always tell people they should, you'll get a great sunrise usually.
And there are lots of activities to do on site as well, right?
There are. So Grand Canyon has a lot of fun activities. We have a glow-in-the-dark frisbee golf course. We have a large bounce pillow, which is not just for kids. Adults seem to love it too. We have s'mores at both locations every night around the community fire pit. Try to do live music on most nights. We have flute making classes we offer. We do a kids activity usually most every night of the week. And then of course there's yoga, and number one activity that guests really, I would say, will say is the most memorable is that we have a stargazing and telescope tour every evening at both properties. And that's something that really is unique because a lot of people come from cities where they just aren't used to seeing so many stars. And that's kind of the most memorable thing besides the domes themselves that I hear from guests.
Wow, that's quite the array of offerings, and a lot of those were super unique. I haven't heard of anywhere. We've done a whole episode dedicated to cool shit on this podcast, and a couple of those I think will definitely make it in, particularly the glow in the dark frisbee golf, which I would certainly want to try, and then also the jumping pillow. I need to see one of those in action. All right. Well, do you want to tell us, how you ended up getting into the outdoor hospitality space?
Gosh, I'll give you a little bit of a torpedo overview. I'll go back to childhood, but I'll go fast through it. So, really, I was fortunate at a young age. My parents always valued travel, and so at a young age, I have memories of traveling. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, so even if it was just driving down to Florida or the beach or Disney World or whatnot, but I had a lot of good experiences of just seeing unique and different places that stuck with me even at a young age. And then growing up, played tennis throughout my childhood, and that afforded me some opportunities to travel the country, which just gave me the travel bug more, I think. And once I graduated college, I was teaching tennis, and my college roommate was also teaching tennis. And we said to ourselves, it was getting really slow in the summer because we were in Arizona. It was real hot, so it gets real slow in that profession in the summer. And we said, there's got to be a way to travel Europe and actually make money and be able to experience a little bit of a trip in Europe. So I don't know if you guys remember the old entertainment books that had the discount coupons. It was back in the late 90s. And we said, after thinking about it, we said, we can create a travel guide across Europe that has coupons for all the establishments like the entertainment book, but make it more of a student study abroad type of target. And so we thought, okay, we can do that, sell advertising and give it out for free. So we went to Europe a couple weeks later, got a lawyer to write up an agreement for establishments to sign to offer coupons. Got to Paris on the first day, couldn't get a single coupon. The second day, struck out again. We were about to turn around and come home, and just kind of were sulking at night one night at a bar, and the bartender overheard us and said, well, we'll give you a coupon. It wasn't in Let's Go Europe, which was where we were trying to target the popular places, but it gave us the confidence to be able to go around the rest of Europe and hit 14 countries and developed the travel magazine, and did it 3 times, 3 months each. Had a great time and really got to meet some great people, experienced a lot of great hotels and establishments, and it just opened my eyes to what else is out there. And there's just a lot of unique places, especially in Europe. And so that is really what gave me the travel bug even more. When I got back, 9/11 had kind of happened, and it just turned that whole industry on its head. No more advertisers. So I was fortunate to get a job with a company called U.S. Travel Guide, which was a subsidiary of Auto Trader. And they do hotel coupons across the country where you might see them in rest areas or Denny's. Nowadays it's all online, but back then it was in these magazines. And so I got to really learn the industry because the first week I was there, the owner of the company said, all right, you're the director of operations. I'm leaving. We'll talk once a week and go run the business. So I had all these salespeople out there and had to go with them on sales calls and got to know a lot of hotel owners across the country and learned a lot about the business. I became friends with many of them. And through that, I actually ended up moving on to real estate and started developing RV parks. So it gave me the experience of underground utilities, which is a big part of these developments. Is 90% of what is there is underground, thousands of feet of pipe, electric, sewer, water, and developing the land. So with my experience with travel, RV parks, infrastructure, and then being in real estate and building new builds, it really was a nice way to break into the industry. And when we were building houses in Montana, we saw this teepee development near North Yellowstone. It was sold out every night, couldn't even go see it. they were getting $350 a night. And we said, we can probably do this, with our background, and somehow this can be done by someone else. But after researching a little bit, we found that teepees they're really super fun and unique, but they don't a lot of times have bathrooms in them, and they still might get wet if it rains. So I started researching some other ways we could have a really nice hotel room like a teepee, and came across the Geodome. So for the last 7 years, I've just been obsessed. The minute I saw them, I just thought it was the coolest thing, and every day still think it's the coolest thing. And luckily, travelers that have come experience our resorts tell me they think it's the coolest thing too, and it's just been a great, fun ride since. And like I said, in 2021, we became one of the first dome full-service hotels in America, and that's kind of how we got off and started.
Wow, what a great story! Yeah, you must have some amazing memories and stories from your time selling travel coupons in 14 countries in Europe. That must have been a hell of a time.
It was great. Can't complain at all.
I think out of all the operators that we've had on who have started in this business, you might have the most appropriate background of a plethora of different experiences in travel, hotel, real estate, RV, construction, marketing, and advertising. So you probably had the best set of experience that I've heard of to start one of these. So tell us about your first property. How'd you find your first location, and what did that process and experience look like?
It was really a lot of it is luck. It's a numbers game. You look at a lot of land, and a lot of it is luck and timing. I'd say timing is just as important, which you could say is luck too. But the more numbers you look at, the luckier you're going to get, right? So you could say you're making your own luck if you're looking at enough properties. And really what it is sometimes the property is the easy part, but then you got to figure out if you can have water, if you can have electricity, if you can have suitable septic fields. And of course, you have to go through all the zoning and all the processes of getting approved. And so for me, it's through having RV parks, I was fine with the process of going through zoning and all the board meetings of the towns. That's definitely a challenge, but I actually kind of enjoy that. And so having a great engineer really helps. We're fortunate to have a really good engineering firm that has helped us get through a lot of those challenges of the septic, and just being more efficient and being able to get approved. It really helps to have a good plan. And so a good engineer definitely has helped us with that. So Grand Canyon was started that way, happened upon a really good engineer. And during COVID, it was a little different getting through zoning, and I don't know if that helped or hurt, but it was a different process. So we did get through the zoning. It took about a year and a half, and really I knew Grand Canyon had 6.2 million visitors a year. There was other glamping sites that were doing very well. So knowing what studying these hotels and other regular hotels and other glamping sites, I knew that we would have the demand if we could build something that would be suitable. And that's really how it got started. It was just a little bit of study, a little bit of luck, and a lot of hard work.
Wow. How did you find your engineer? I know that's super important position. You said you happened upon him. Like how did you find him?
Actually, we did have an engineer before the one we're with now, and they had a lot of RV park experience, and so they were great with that, but they didn't have glamping. And I realized there is a lot of difference just in the setup of how you lay the hotel out, and just some of the nuances of glamping. And someone had introduced them to me. It's Anderson Engineering is who we use, and they've done a lot of sites around the country. And they're out of Montana, so they have a lot of experience with national parks and navigating through some of the hurdles of some of the zoning hurdles that they've just had experience with, and knowing if sometimes it's not even worth approaching a certain area and you can just skip it.
I think when you're looking for whether it's a designer, an architect, an engineer, two things you're looking for really is one is the sense of design to create an experience and a feel that just feels nice and has that aesthetic, but also obviously they've got to be capable of navigating the permitting and zoning challenges. I'm curious to know, obviously it sounds like they're very competent on the zoning and permitting aspect. What was the process like for you designing that site and the layout with that firm?
the process was really making sure that the views were going in the, there's things that you look back and you say, I wish I had done better, but we were lucky in that we did them close to where I think the ideal was. But our second resort, it's a lot, just little things you've learned. And really it's just spacing the domes in a way where the views are not obstructed. But a big part of it is the sun, doing a sun study at different times of day and making sure that you're turning the windows the right way. And little things like that make a big difference. And then, of course, the flow of where you meet for the lobby to where you take guests to the domes, and keeping it dark. Dark skies is a super important thing to us, and making sure headlights are not pointed in certain directions. And you want to always take that into account. We found that's been a big, like I said, we were a little bit lucky on the first one. The second one, we've been a lot more deliberate in making sure that headlights is just a big thing for us with the stargazing.
Do you let people drive up to them, or is there a parking lot and then they have to walk?
We've done it both ways. Grand Canyon, we have a community lot close to each dome set, and then we have golf carts that will shuttle people if they want. Most people love walking, but when we take their luggage, we always take them to the dome on the first check-in. But the walking at night is really the magic when you can look up and it's dark skies. At Bryce Canyon, it's such a large property and it's a little more hilly. We let people park at their dome, and like I said, we've really designed it to where the headlights is minimal toward any window, and so they both work as long as you design it right with a good engineer. We found they both work pretty well.
It looks like from just the website photos that you have, it looks like all the units, the glass, the windows are faced away from the interior streets for the most part. And then you mentioned doing the sun study to bear in mind at what time of the day the sun will be hitting them. Are you trying to have the dome windows face sunrise or face sunset, or are you trying to mitigate some sort of temperature, like how the temperature is affected by the direct sunlight? What's your process there?
Either way is fine, sunrise or sunset. Facing north is better, just because it is, the sun is obviously on the northern hemisphere coming from the south. If in an ideal world, every dome faces north, but the ones that face south are great too, because we do have tinted windows, UV protected, and curtains on our Bryce Canyon location and Grand Canyon. And they all have HVAC units, so they just run a little longer if they're facing south. They both work, and little things like if you do have the sun rise on the door side, we now have blocked the doors to not be glass, and we'll make those opaque. On the sunset side, the same thing. So there's little things that we've learned along the way. But honestly, the view is more important to me. If there's a mountain view that's facing north, south, east, or west, we want to face that mountain and get that pretty view when you can look out and see. Luckily, most of our locations on both of them has great views in any direction, so everybody's getting a great view. And we also at Bryce Canyon have privacy curtains on the lower half if the few that do face a road, so you're still able to see the stars and have no one looking in. But the ones that face the mountain, there's no one behind you, and you can leave them wide open, and you'll be fine.
Hello, listeners. This is Sherry Halala, founder of Sage Outdoor Advisory. If you're launching an outdoor hospitality project like glamping, we can help. We offer feasibility studies and appraisals. What that means is we look at your specific market and proposed business offering and complete an in-depth analysis to make sure that your planned business will be profitable. Getting a second opinion on your proposal and forecasted financials is critical to understand before you spend years of your time and hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is particularly important if you are looking to raise money for your project from a bank or private investors. They are going to want to see this type of deep dive analysis from an independent third-party specialist in the industry. We at Sage have completed well over 250 feasibility studies and appraisals in outdoor hospitality in North America in the last 4 years. So we understand what it takes to bring a project from concept to reality. If this sounds like it could be helpful to you, you can go to our website, sageoutdooradvisory.com, and schedule a call with our team. While you're there, check out our proprietary glamping database map too. Thanks. Now back to the show.
Top priority is to have them facing a good view. And then the second thing, I thought I was curious. I would have thought it would have been the opposite. So you prefer to have them face away from the sun. And is that predominantly for temperature, or is that predominantly so they're not getting blasted by sunlight in the morning?
Well, north, when I say north, you still get the sunrise, obviously, on the east, either way. But facing east is a fun way to wake up because of the sunrise. So to your point, facing east, if there's a great view facing east, that probably would be the choice of most people. Facing north, these windows are so wide and panoramic that you still get the view of the east and west if you're facing north or south. But I would say, just in my mind, if you face north, it's just a little less wear and tear on the dome from the sun not always beating on the glass all day. But because they're climate controlled, it's fine either way.
And then were you mentioning, so do people need to walk up to those big windows on the front to see the sky, or are there windows on the ceiling?
Oh, no, they go floor to ceiling. So you'll lay in bed and you can look straight up because they curve, and you'll see pretty much the whole sky from your bed at our Bryce Canyon location. At Grand Canyon, there's a skylight that you open, and then in the front, there's a panoramic window that goes about 2/3 of the way up. So it's a little less at the Grand Canyon location, but you definitely can see stars at either place.
And what was it about domes that made you fall in love with those structures?
I just think the wow factor of the open, up to 18-foot ceilings, 14, 18-foot ceilings, and you walk in and a normal hotel room, you expect a little more of a square, and you walk in and it's just this huge open area. But the panoramic window is really the wow factor for me, where you can just look out and just feel like you're outside, but in the comfort of hopefully a 4-star plus hotel room. And so I just knew the domes would give you that experience the minute I saw them, and hopefully we're providing that to the guests and they agree.
You're speaking Nick's language. That's exactly why he describes domes are great. Was there any other unit types that you were strongly considering? And was there, I guess, was it basically like that view and just the feel on the inside and maybe cost as well that ultimately did it for you, or were there any strong runner-ups?
Not really, because once I discovered geodomes, it was pretty much an obsession. I would just study every dome, whether it's an Airbnb or a dome hotel in Europe or South America, or in Middle East, just try to take little things from each one. And, I probably looked at each one 1,000 times and just tried to take some of the little things that each one did great, I thought, and then would appeal to the public, and then maybe try to improve certain things that I thought could be done better. And hopefully we've created a merging of the 100 other domes I've looked at around the world and try to make it, into one of the best of all 100.
Obviously, the shape of the domes are unique. The glass frontage is amazing, but you've also made some bold choices with the interior design of each unit as well. So I know there's some copyright things, so we can't go too specific. But there's a secret agent interior theme, for example. Maybe 006. There's a retro gaming theme, cartoon theme. So is every single dome designed with that particularly distinctive interior, or is it only some of them? And curious to know kind of the thought process around that.
Yeah. So not every dome has a theme, but I decided to do themes because I thought it would be really fun and unique, number one, but two, it just gives the traveler another reason to come and visit another type dome. And so, and it creates a buzz, and it's just really fun to see people's eyes light up when they walk into some of the themes. Some people don't like themes, and so they just wouldn't stay in them. And we have, the majority of our rooms are not actually a theme. You could say they're a theme because it's in Grand Canyon. It's Grand Canyon type of interior, and they're great domes too. But the Secret Agent dome is really fun because it's just, we'll have people, sometimes we're sold out on all the other domes, let's say, and then there's only that one left, for an example, and when they get in there, they're so happy they got that one, but they just didn't think they would want it, and then they realize, wow, this is really cool. The 80s game room appeals to both kids and adults because it's 80s video games, that there's 60 of them that you can play, which kind of goes against glamping because you're in nature, but it's kind of fun just to have a family experience. The Space Galaxy Dome is super fun. It's probably one of our more popular ones, and then we have a pink rainbows, hearts, and unicorns dome as well, which like I said, it's one of those things that maybe only 25% of the people love a pink dome, but the 25% that do are so into it, they'll dress up in pink, and it's like a whole niche following. It's fun to watch. So
have you got like retro gaming machines in the 80s gaming one?
We do. It's got about 60 different 80s games. Dig Dug and Donkey Kong and Pac-Man and all those games on the board. So,
What's your favorite?
gosh, I can never stay in that dome because it always seems to be sold out. So I haven't stayed in that dome since we first opened. I don't think. So. But probably
Must be
Pac-Man.
working.
Probably miss Pac-Man.
When you went from site 1 to site 2, did your strategy change at all with the interior design, with how many were unique and how many weren't, or did you use the same model?
Yeah, so at Bryce Canyon, it's a little more of a luxurious property. So the feel on the inside, I thought would be better to be a little more of a higher end, classy look. So I at first was not planning on doing any themes at Bryce Canyon, just to make them really nice. Try to make it a 4.5-star hotel room. As close to it as we could. But everybody was saying you have to do a theme or two. You have to do a theme or two. And after hearing it for about 6 months, we did put in 3 disco domes, and they're super fun. And I'm glad we did. We probably should have done more. It's one of those, again, we've had all ages. We've had 85-year-olds staying there, and they've had the best night of their life, they said. I mean, it just, you walk in, the disco music's playing, there's a laser dance floor, disco ball, all the laser lights. It's basically like, Studio 54, but you can sleep in there. So it's a lot of fun. But the other domes are not themed, and they're super nice, and I think they came out really well. I think we got lucky on those. So.
That's really interesting, and this is a fascinating subject, and I have kind of mixed feelings on doing them all one way. So maybe I'll start with the pros first. Having unique domes, one of the pros is, like you said, guests can come back and try a different dome and have a different experience. I think the second one is you're making some stickiness for social media and for press releases, something just people like to talk about. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to show. It's shareable. And then I think some of the cons might be, one, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, but if something breaks in a theme dome, right, you only have one of those. So it might be a little bit harder to replace, as opposed to if all 25 units are the same. And maybe doing the laundry, I don't know if the sheets and linens are the same, but you might have, specific sheets. So it's harder to have backups and resupplies if things break or something runs out. And then the second thing is, it's pretty rare that a luxury 4-star, 5-star hotel is going to have themed rooms. So you wonder if like a luxury traveler is going to think, oh, is this tacky, or is this going to hurt the luxury feel? So I kind of see both sides. And at Sandy Vans, actually, the company I helped found, we're trying to be a premium van, but we always we give all of our vans names after action heroes. So we have like Jackie Van, Sylvester Stallone, like Van Veronica Corning Stone, like all these, and Morgan Freeman. So like, and it's just kind of, it adds like a fun element to it that I think lets our personalities shine through. But like, we're also doing the premium. But I guess how have you navigated that choice between, luxury premium versus uniqueness and character?
No, it's a great question. And what I find is, again, people who don't want to stay in a theme dome, they just won't book that dome, and that's fine. So they really never will know the difference, because there's plenty of domes that aren't themed that we have. And we try to, the theme domes, we try to do at least 3, to your point, because it is different linens usually. And if something does break, there's only a few. We always have an extra 1 or 2 on hand when we decide to do the theme. But I'm actually on my way to Grand Canyon right now, delivering a couple replacement beds after 5 years, or going our 5th season, to 2 of the theme domes, because they do get wear and tear after a number of years, and it's not just a quick, easy replacement. It's a little bit of a special order. Even, for example, our 80s game room, it's a round mattress, and that's not easy to find. There's only a few suppliers that have it. So to your point, they are a little harder, but it's just a lot of fun, and people seem to enjoy them. And it does create a little bit of a buzz, and we do get a social media kick sometimes on those.
I'm also curious. You mentioned creating a buzz. I love live music, and I think it has the potential to be an absolutely amazing experience. It's not something that's typically offered at kind of the not even the higher end glampings. It's just not necessarily something that you'd associate with an experience out in nature. So I'm curious to know kind of how that decision came about, and what you think it adds to the guest experience, and how it's gone down generally with guests.
Yeah, so the live music to me has been amazing because, first of all, we're very fortunate. We have a gentleman who's Grammy nominated that we met the first week we opened Grand Canyon. His name's Aaron White from Flagstaff, and he carves his own flutes. So I heard him playing in Williams. I thought it was the radio. He was so good. He plays Neil Young as good as Neil Young, maybe even better than Neil Young. So I hear him playing, and I introduce myself, and we had him come up, and we've used him a number of nights a week ever since. And he plays the flute at sunset from his hand-carved flutes, and there's people literally in tears because it's just so magical with the flute. And then he plays, just great music, and I just see everybody's smiling, and even kids will stop what they're doing and come listen. So the live music has just been a great activity to bring people together, whether it's around the s'mores fire pit or just sit and relax and eat dinner. To me, there's no other way. Not everybody has to listen to it, but majority of people, I think, flock over once they hear music start. It's sunset especially.
Yeah, so it's more like atmospheric rather than, busting out the amps and putting on a, Springsteen cover kind of thing.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Once in a while, maybe those songs will be played, but yeah, it's a little more atmospheric, setting the tone. But it's definitely some good rock music too, once in a while. So.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Can you tell us about how did you mentioned you had kind of a property funnel and you were looking at a lot of different ones and it was a bit of a numbers game, but how did you find your first property? Was it through a broker, looking online? How was it identified?
Every property that I found, and we have other ones in the works too, that it's all been off market, just talking to realtors or people, locals in the area that know of land maybe that hasn't necessarily been listed. And I don't know if that's not necessarily the right way or the best way, but that's the way that's worked for us to find certain of these lands. Bryce Canyon was off market. It does sometimes tend to take longer to go through the channels I found them for whatever reason. But it was really just looking at a number of properties and putting a lot of offers out. And again, just a lot of numbers and timing and luck.
When did you decide you were ready for the second location?
I've always felt from the first month we opened that I wanted to expand it and really create a brand, be one of the premier luxury lodging outdoor brands in the country. And I knew we'd have to expand to do that. And as long as we could find places, with the demand, of course, near national parks usually has a great demand in other areas near large cities. As long as they could be in a dark sky area and we could find land that can meet all the, guidelines of getting the water and electric, then ready to go as soon as we got stable at Grand Canyon. Probably, within 6 months, it started to be a focus. So pretty soon after, because it really is, the hard part is done once. The domes are hard to figure out the first time, but after you figure it out and get good crews, it almost gets easier to get more locations with staffing and everything else. We can shuffle staff if we need to. So I found it's actually been a little bit easier on operations having 2 locations versus just one, and hopefully having 3 will get a little easier from the staffing perspective as well.
Were you always intending to develop year round with the second one as well, or to be open year round? Sorry.
Yes, for us, the ideal world is to be open year round. Grand Canyon, the zoning doesn't allow us to be, so we're only able to be open for a part of the year. But in locations that allow us to be open year round. Now, I was surprised in the winter. We've been a lot busier at Bryce than I thought we would be the first winter, but there was definitely a demand all year. It's not obviously going to be as busy in the winter in many areas, but if you can keep the lights on and pay your staff, we feel like it's worth being open year round.
Have you leaned into, are you putting any specific push on marketing and advertising for winter glamping at Bryce? And the reason I say that is because I had a chance to see the Grand Canyon in the winter, and I've seen pictures of Bryce Canyon when it's dusted in snow, and it's magnificent. And I got to go to Sedona when it had a recent snow dusting, and it was such a special experience. And I guess, yeah, have you leaned into that? Like, hey, come see Bryce in the snow, and like really pushed that?
Yes, it's funny because some people have said people come hiking and if there's snow they can't hike. But what we found at Bryce is it's so pretty and it's almost a cozy atmosphere in the snow. It's only snowed a few times, but the few pictures we've posted on Instagram of snow, our reservations have gone up. and it just snowed the other day when I was there, and you wake up to this magical view on the mountains of snow, and you can still hike too. There's a lot of hikes that actually are really fun in the snow. Some slot cannons nearby, and so I'm with you. I think it's a magical time to visit, and the astronomer we have astronomy experts that come do stargazing tours, and they will all tell you that the winter is actually the best stargazing because it's drier air. Don't get me wrong, the summer is amazing too, but the winter is just a little bit that much better for stargazing. So, and it's less busy, so you can get on all the hikes you want, and you can get in the parks a lot easier. The winter is a great time, I think, for both parks.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
imagine a lot of glamping guests might be like nervous, or they almost would need to be given permission or like told like, hey, you can come do this when it's snowing, like your unit's going to be warm. Showing videos of people in their unit with snow outside or hiking in the snow and being like, hey, this is one of the best times to come. I imagine the response could be really good, but people kind of need to like be told, hey, this is a good idea.
Yeah, we do need to push it, but the guests that we've talked to would say that they are so glad they've come in the winter. If there's a major blizzard, it's one thing, but we haven't experienced too many of those yet. So, but for the most part, the roads are all kept well around these national parks, and these highways are all plowed very well. So even if it has a heavy snow, it's really been no problem at either place to get to in the winter.
Did you for the Grand Canyon location, did you build it all at once? There was no phasing?
Correct. We built Grand Canyon all at once. We didn't quite finish when we opened initially. We had a few domes left to build, but the plan was to build it all at once, and we did get those finished relatively quickly after we opened. But we didn't phase it, and that is an interesting question. Bryce Canyon, we opened 25 initially in August of this last year, and we'll have 62 open in the next month, and then we do have the ability to do 28 more in a second phase. We decided to phase, so you do have to do enough to make sure it's worth opening, though, with a certain amount of domes.
Hello, friends. We've got a special opportunity for our listeners as we continue to grow and professionalize the podcast. We wanted to offer to our listeners a chance to use one of these ad spaces, kind of like a billboard, a chance to market your services to our audience. And we'd much prefer this to be folks who are in the space or have a service in the space or have an operation so that it's relevant for everybody and we can continue to help each other. So we wanted to give this this chance to our listeners first. And if you are interested in doing an ad read in one of our episodes and getting some leads through this long form content, you can reach out to contact@glampatech.com and we can have a conversation about it. Thanks. Back to the show. I'd be really curious to hear like the breakdown of when you did, well, both Grand Canyon and Bryce, and if it was different, like of all the different costs, like the purchase price of the land, the horizontal infrastructure for the roads and utilities, the decks, the dome units themselves, or the interior design, like which of those budgets, which of those was the most expensive, and did it change from property to property, or like how are you budgeting for that?
No question, the infrastructure is the most expensive and the most unpredictable. The infrastructure, having to do turn lanes, sometimes a bridge, those are the things that have really been a very eye-opening learning experience. The interior design it's challenging, but it's a lot more predictable. You can set that, and it really should not vary too much because you can control that. But sometimes the infrastructure, especially if you're building in a canyon where there's a lot of hills and just a lot of things come up that you can't predict. Even an engineer with the best topo map in the world, it just seems to be a much harder process to predict. We're getting much better, but every piece of land's different. So Grand Canyon's a lot flatter, Bryce Canyon's a lot hillier, and different nuances to each location. So I would say infrastructure for sure is the most challenge.
You're spot on, and we tell people that all the time. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially the visionaries, the first thing they want to create a budget for is the units and the interior design. And that's what they put most of their time and effort into. And I always say, when you first find a property, find out how much it's going to cost to put the roads and utilities in. Once you know that, then you can get the rest, all the vertical stuff within, 20%. It's fairly straightforward, but the other stuff can vary so much. There's not even a point to do a budget until you've got those major costs identified first.
I agree. And unfortunately, in our experience, sometimes the towns even can come back, or the states and the jurisdictions, and can make changes even after you've been approved on certain aspects. But sometimes they can come back and say, well, now we realize you have to do this or that, and that your budget could be completely set from what was approved, and it could sometimes even change a little bit. So we have to allow for that too.
What's more expensive for you, the decks, and are you using wood or composite, or the domes themselves, or the interior design? And I guess it's probably important to break down, I guess maybe you could count like the bathrooms as part of the deck cost, I suppose.
Right. I mean, the deck domes versus building them on pads are more expensive. They are. We've been using Trex stacking as opposed to wood, just for the longevity, and they look nice as well. So, but they both are great, whether it's on a pad, a concrete pad, or a deck. But in the interiors, that's where I probably have spent the most time sourcing and logistics. We're usually building in the middle of nowhere, and it's a huge challenge. That's hard to really, anybody that's done construction, it's hard to relate to it unless you've gone through it. And the building in the middle of nowhere, where Home Depot is an hour and a half away, you really have to plan the logistics and stay organized and inventory. It's a super challenging thing, but if you can figure it out, it's definitely worthwhile. So.
Did you have to get like a box truck or, a huge trailer to, get all that furniture and stuff out? I imagine people weren't delivering these to site, or maybe they were. But how did you overcome that logistics challenge?
Honestly, it's about 2 years of planning before the project even started, of talking to suppliers for hours and hours a day, which is for me fun, but it's also it's a lot of work, and it's 2 full-time jobs, but it is definitely something that you have to really think about, because I remember building Grand Canyon during COVID. You had to go to 20 Home Depots to get something you can get at one Home Depot today. So there's things like that, but getting as much as you can delivered to the site is kind of the trick, if you can do that, and you have to budget for that as well. In our experience, at least, speaking for what we've had to go through.
And developing in a far out area, far out location. We've just done a couple of episodes that have touched upon recruitment and bringing in staff. How was it finding staff for such a remote location and for such a large development as well?
Yeah, it can be challenging as well. We've been fortunate to use a J1 program for the summers, where we get, you'll get students that are looking in hospitality that'll come over for 4 months from many countries around the world, and that's been a really great process for us. And they kind of bring a little bit of the magic of their accents, and it's kind of fun. And they seem to be grateful to be here with the experience. But we also have been lucky with some locals in both areas. And of course, there's a lot of people that want to visit a national park and work for 6 or months or a year. And we've been very fortunate to get some great staff that way. And there's a whole industry of RVers that are probably overqualified to even work at these resorts, semi-retired couples that want to work, but they also want to experience a national park, and they'll come live in their RV. And as long as you provide a space and pay them the wage you're paying your other employees, they're okay with it, because they can have a couple of days to travel and experience something that's, a little more fun.
I couldn't possibly comment on the benefits of having an accent in North America, but I'm curious, where did the international staff stay in the summer?
So we do have employee housing at both locations. Our Bryce Canyon employee housing is not all the way finished. We have a couple places that are finished on site. We did have a couple of houses we rented in the area when we first opened. Grand Canyon, we have employee housing on site that can pretty much house most of our staff, besides a few of the locals that we have. And then we have some RV places that they can plug in. And so between that, the J1s we always house on site if we can. And you do have to provide transportation for them to the grocery store and whatnot. But that is a key. Being in the middle of these remote areas, you have to have housing, else it's going to be really hard to staff. So that's been a definite must.
What does that housing look like?
We've just done a big dome with different quadrants in the dome, and made bedrooms within the dome, and of course community bathrooms, different bathrooms in a dome. So it still fits the theme, and it's kind of fun and unique. And we'll have a community kitchen, outdoor kitchen as well, indoor kitchen, and a lot of times they'll cook together, and it's a fun experience. We've actually created, we think, 2 marriages. One of them I know got married, the other one is engaged. So I need to find out. So
that was kind of the next question. You're bringing in a load of uni students, basically, international uni students. Yeah, I think of the partying that goes on at ski resorts, for example, during the ski season. Do you ever have any issues with partying or misbehavior or anything like that?
Our first season, we the biggest challenge we had was once in a while one of the J1s wouldn't show up because they were depressed that the other guy or girl wasn't talking to them and they were talking to someone else after 2 weeks. So you have to manage the relationships, but we've been super fortunate. Most people are respectable and understand that they need to keep it quiet to make sure the guests don't ever hear them, and they're usually off a little bit away from where the guests are. But ever since the first year of kind of working through some of those challenges, I think we kind of have a sergeant at arms that stays on site that kind of keeps them at bay.
I'm envisioning a new reality TV show instead of Below Deck, like Below Dome or Below Canvas, where you come in and follow the lives.
If I'm told to apply.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
It is funny what you said. It stood out to me, and it is very memorable when staff are international and have accents. And I think one of the big reasons why this podcast is a huge success is because of, because Nick's accent is fun to listen to. And I actually think that probably adds a pretty strong element to the uniqueness and the memorable aspect of having international people on your staff. Do you get that feedback from guests?
No, I agree. Because we've had people from Poland, and then you'll have a couple travelers who are from Poland, and all of a sudden they're best friends. And we've had people come back and visit twice in one season, and because they had such a great experience, we like to think because our domes are great, but it was also because our staff, and they came back and mentioned that they were just so comfortable. The accent is definitely it is fun. Yes, it does make them feel like they're on vacation even more than they already are. I feel like that does add to it. And they're here to learn English, and they usually know English pretty well, but their accents are still there, and I think it does add a lot.
I imagine you use a website to find those J1 employees. How does that work?
We've gone through CIEE. That's been the one we've used, but I know there's a lot of them out there. And there's a company, there's other companies that do it, and they make it pretty easy, actually. They just they do a lot of the paperwork for you. But there's, just like anything, there's still other paperwork you have to go through.
That's a really good lesson for the listeners is, one, staff housing, critical. Can't emphasize that enough. Put it into your business plan. Put it into your site plan. And then, being able to use CIEE to find staff. So thank you. I'd love to learn, what supplier you used for your domes for your first property. And then when you did the evolution to the, paneled, glass units, who you're using now, and I guess the pros and cons of that switch.
I've used multiple different suppliers. There's companies in Europe I've used companies in Canada, there's companies in Oregon I've used, and then there's companies in Asia. I've used them all. And honestly, they've all been we've been lucky. All of them have been great. So I would never at this point say one's, much better than the other. It's really the challenge of knowing just how to put these together in a way that a shape of round is really challenging at first to work with. That's been more of a challenge than the actual domes themselves. It's just trying to figure out how to navigate a round structure with the plumbing, and it seems easy on paper, but it never is that easy in the practicality of it. Even after doing it, numerous times, we still run into challenges once in a while that come up. So that's probably been the biggest challenge. But the suppliers, there's many dome suppliers out there, and they've all been great.
What's been most successful for you from a marketing and an advertising perspective? And then did you try some things that definitely didn't work that you cut?
Social media has been our number one for sure marketing. We've been fortunate to be on the news a lot, and we'll always do that. And usually you'll get a bump for a couple days, and we get a lot of free press that just maybe because we are unique, and it's a fun feel good story. We've been fortunate in that way, but social media has been by far. I think it's just the new way marketing is kind of taking over the world, and I think my wife actually does our social media, and she said it best. It's like while you're sleeping and while you're not even on there, it's doing your promotion for you, and so it just keeps going. If you get a great viral post, it'll hit. If you can, we've had a couple of posts hit 10 million people, and even if you're on, say, the Today Show, you might hit 3 million people, but of those 3 million, maybe only 10% actually are really into the story. Whereas social media, usually people are clicking on it and paying attention. They're a little more warm to it. So that's been our biggest, I think, marketing.
And then you get a follower. Ideally, you get a follower, and you keep creating content that they keep seeing, and they're far more likely to book. Whereas if someone sees you on the news, they're probably not going to pull out their phone and follow you from seeing you on the news, and then you lose that eyeball.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And of course, social media, you'll get influencers. The more you're doing, the more the influencers will find you. So at first, I try to spend at least a half hour a day, and my wife does as well, separately, reaching out to influencers every day. But what happens is we're actually now getting more influencers reaching out to us, because they'll see another influencer come, and you get 10 other ones that want to come behind them. So now we almost have to turn down a lot of them if they don't have a certain following, because it gets to be too much. But it really is important to stay active with the influencers, and it's a consistent daily thing that we try to do.
Yeah, I actually did an email newsletter on influencers the other day. It'll be a few weeks ago when this comes out, and the one thing I said is it's not kind of just a one-off thing for launch or for getting going. It should be a consistent thing where you should have them booked in every month, because it is almost like a cheat code where it's like, not every influencer post will work, but the ones that do really will work. And they'll see an uptick in bookings, in followers, and engagement. So absolutely. I'm curious to know how you split the marketing with the two locations, in terms of whether you focus more on building the Clear Sky brand, or whether you focus on individual site level marketing, or a bit of both. So could you just maybe walk us through that a little bit?
We try to split it between both locations. Because Grand Canyon is closed in the winter, we probably had a little more social media for Bryce Canyon this winter, but we try to keep it equal. And really, it's just, to your point, you just never know which one's going to do which post. Sometimes you think the best post is going to do the best, and it ends up not doing well. And then your worst post, or one that you think would be your worst post that doesn't seem that exciting, is the one that blows up. And same thing with influencers. We've had influencers that haven't been that big, and they've had 6 million views on a post. And then we've had some that are, have 500,000 followers, and they may get 20,000 views on a post. So you just never know. But we try to keep it, again, just consistent. And the biggest key that my wife is really good at is engaging back with the post, and commenting back to as people respond to the post is very important for keeping your engagements. We found, and so it's definitely a lot of work, but it's definitely worthwhile.
Have you done any paid social, or is it all organic?
We've really been fortunate to not have to do any paid social to this point. We've had some approaches, and I truly think they deserve to get paid, but because we've been fortunate with a lot of influencers, that we also feel like we're providing them with one amazing heck of a vacation and some unique content for them and their followers, that we've made the decision right now that we just don't pay influencers. But I totally can see the value in paying influencers, because many of them will definitely be worthwhile if you do.
And how about like paid advertisements through those platforms like Meta, or Instagram, but you're not paying the influencer, but you're boosting or creating paid ads on the platforms?
Yes, we do have some Instagram and Facebook Meta ads that are running around, and those seem to be doing pretty well as well. It's just keeping it in front of people, because they may see your post, but then they may have to see it 4 or 5 times so it sinks in that, hey, I need to book this place. So we have done some of that.
And whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because and we failed to mention this at the beginning, but you have 215,000 followers on Instagram, which is one of the highest I've seen. So clearly it's working. And your wife, who you mentioned does a lot of the running, it sounds like she's been doing a phenomenal job. And then you mentioned that a huge portion of your bookings come through social media. Is that correct? Like, About how many? About what percent?
I don't want her to ask for a raise, but she probably gets 70% of yeah. Uh, she get paying she really doesn't get paid much at all, but if she if you were to value it, she probably does 70% of our bookings. It's hard to exactly measure, but I always have the staff ask, and I always ask when I'm at the properties, how'd you hear about us? And 7 out of 10 times it's Instagram or TikTok, and that's been more than most anything. And it's definitely, we've had people. It's crazy. We've had people I've talked to that have saw us on Instagram, and a week later they were a retired couple, and they've had a few of these, and they've flown out just to see the resort because they saw it on Instagram. You just never know what it's going to reach someone.
Wow.
How you you're running between properties today when we're recording, which sounds like you're still very much in the weeds. I know, when most people, when they open up the second property and they start, moving up to kind of overseeing things rather than actively being involved in things. Are you still very much in the weeds? Do you want to be in the weeds, or are you looking to move out? I'm curious to know what the situation is there.
Certain things I'm definitely in the weeds on. We're still building Bryce, and because there's so many nuances, no matter how much you write it down for the crews or tell them where to put things, or you still have to be there to make sure it's done exactly where you need it to be. And in my experience, and we have great crews, but it's just that little bit that sometimes you're mad at yourself if you're not there and it gets missed. So when we're building the resorts, I'm definitely in the weeds. The operations, I've been fortunate. We have some great people that actually know more than I do about operations and have great, SOPs that I couldn't even come up as well as they have just from being in the industry. But as you know, it's, you can have it all down on paper, but getting it implemented is the most important thing. So there's still some day to day that you always want to make sure, at least I do, involved with on making sure things are being implemented. But how they get implemented, I try to let the managers do what they do, and they're better at doing it than I am. So I try to get out of the way for that. But I'm definitely still in the weeds at the design part for sure, and the supply part at this point is something that I'm involved with quite regularly, and of course marketing. But I enjoy marketing a lot. So.
Now, a lot of glamping operators have crazy war stories and ridiculous things that happen on their properties. Is there anything that's happened to you like that?
Gosh, I mean, just building is probably the craziest, going 1,000 directions. And just when you think, I always have a saying, if we get through a day with only 10 things that are a challenge, we're happy. We've had crazy things happen. Like we had a wild horse come on our property at Grand Canyon. It was really fun to see. Nobody's horse in the area. But we've had guests come up and say the birds were chirping too loud. You get all kinds of fun feedback once in a while, and you think you've seen it all, but sometimes you just like, wow, this might be it.
How did you capitalize the first and the second projects?
Capitalize it, mean value it, or
the construction?
Yeah.
How did you raise the money? Was it equity? Did you get a loan? You get investors?
So I've had private investors that have been fortunate to believe in the vision of it and have kind of from the start just really believed in the vision, and now wanting to take it to a bigger level now that they've seen kind of the demand and that we can implement the process. Just been fortunate in that way. There's I know there are some banks out there, and I've used some bank funding for a very low part of it because not a lot of banks will fund a lot of the percentage of the project. So I've always had the good fortune of private investors to believe in it.
That's awesome. How did you find that? Were they in your personal network when you launched, or did you have to go out and hit the phones and call around?
A little bit of both, indirectly in the personal network, or I actually one of our investors I was actually talking to with no intention of having them invest, was just asking him if he knew anybody in the industry that would want to, and he said, come to think of it, maybe I do. So you just never know, right? That's been a big part of it. It's just it's a unique thing, so people get really excited. It's travel, it's sexy, it's kind of got sizzle, right? So I feel like in this industry, you'll get people that are either really excited about it or they don't understand it and they wouldn't even look at it. So you kind of, to me, get both ends of the spectrum.
Awesome. Well, we have one final question on the running order, Connor. I don't know if you have anything else to cover before we finish off.
I was just going to ask maybe one more time, like what, have you had any favorite moments or memories out on the property, or have any guests shared any really favorite special moments or experiences out there?
I mean, we've had so many anniversary honeymoons, proposals. But one thing that kind of has become our mission, and I don't know if I told you, our mission is really just to create a unique experience that's unlike anything a guest has ever seen. And if we do that, then you're really just allowing a guest to escape reality for a few days. And if that's really our mission, is try to get people away from real life, get away from what they've, if they can have a 2 or 3 day break, and seeing stars really changes people's perspectives. And that's super important, especially now more than ever. And if you're doing that, you're just creating happiness for people. And that's kind of our mission. If, we tell our staff, if, you're not just cleaning a room, you're actually providing a way that people are creating happiness by having what you're doing here. So we had a gentleman, one of my good friends, runs a food bank in Phoenix in the Southwest. He's doing a lot more important things than we are. We're just creating happiness at a resort, but he's feeding the hungry. But he came with his wife, and we have these big swing chairs in the lobby that hang from the ceiling. And after he checked in, he just kind of sat there with his wife and laid in the chairs. And after about a half hour, I came to see if he wanted to go eat dinner, and he said, "No, we're having a great time." And he was just laying in the swing chair. And about an hour later, he gets up and he comes to me and he looks at me and he says, Hal, what you're doing here is you're literally making people happy. That's really, he just couldn't believe watching people check in and just being wowed and being happy when they come on vacation. He said, you're just making people happy. And that's kind of stuck with our mission. So that for me has been memorable because it really has been helpful to our mission of, even to this day, I'll just go into the check-in lobby at check-in and watch people, just smile and put their video cameras out and just have their jaws drop. And that's kind of the most fun part for me.
Awesome. I think that's a beautiful way to finish off, Hal. Thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate we've absolutely grilled you there for over an hour, but some absolutely fantastic answers. Is there anything, I don't know whether you're looking for additional investment for the next phase of location 2, or if you're looking for location 3, but if there's anything that you want to ask of our listeners, now's your chance.
No, I appreciate it. We're always open to talking to anybody, but really just come experience something that hopefully you've never seen. We'd love to have anybody come, and clearskyresorts.com is the best place, and our Instagram is at clearskyresorts. Love to have anybody and everybody who wants to come up to the location. So, and I appreciate you guys having us.
What is your plans for the future? What's your kind of your end game with this? Are you trying to have 3, 5, 10? Are you trying to sell or own it forever? Or where are you? What's the vision?
Right now, just focused, I think, on building up the brand to where if we can continue to find great locations in dark sky areas with a great stargazing, we want to continue to expand. As long as we're finding good land and great areas with the demand, our vision is to really expand this to become one of the premier outdoor luxury lodging brands in the country and maybe the world at some point. And that's really our thought process right now.
And are you looking outside of Utah and Arizona, and are you looking for additional investors?
We're always looking outside in any location that, again, ideally near a national park or near a major city that can still be dark skies, so it can't be just in the middle of a town. And again, we're always open to other investors. It's never always open to talk to someone, for sure.
Well, thank you, gents. That was an absolute pleasure. Hopefully there was a lot of gold in there for the listeners. Hal, really appreciate your time, and we wish you the best of luck for your future projects. I'm sure they'll go absolutely fantastically well. And Connor, thank you as ever.
Yeah, Hal, thanks. Can't wait to come stay at one of your properties.
Anytime you guys are in Arizona or Utah, let me know. Love to have you guys.
Cheers, guys.
All right.
Cheers. Hello, friends. This episode is made possible by the support of Live Oak Bank, the industry leaders for outdoor hospitality financing and the largest SBA lender in the country. If you want to learn more about their services and if it's right for your project, you can go to their website, liveoak.bank.